Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm back. Thanks for watching. Today's episode is muy bueno, man. It's going to be good stuff. So we're going to learn about aperture today. And I know we've talked about apertures before, and we've talked about f-stops and all that stuff, and depth of field. This isn't going to be about that. This is going to be about collecting light. So this is using your aperture as a tool to collect light, using your f-stops and learning about the f-stops and how they relate to each other. And trust me, you're going to want to watch this. It's going to show you the range of light that you can gather with your camera. It's going to fill you in into a little more of the depth that you have, the control that you have over your camera. And the more you know about that, the more creative you can be with the pictures, and the more you can take pictures that you want. So check it out. I'm telling you, this is the bomb, baby. So, you know, no matter what your skill level, check this out. I'm sure you'll learn something. So the first thing we're going to go over is what are the major f-stops, because I say major f-stops, but they're just f-stops, okay? On your camera, when you do your little clicks and your little dials and things, you probably have a lot of different numbers in between your real f-stops. So the f-stop is really f5.6, f8, f11, f16, f22, and f32, okay? And there's more than that, but a lot of the lenses, the kit lenses, they stop at 5.6. You can even go as low as 4.0, 2.8, f2. Okay, so those are the f-stops that covers a wide range. That covers the range of basically what any lenses are out there going to be. So you got 2, 2.8, 4, 5.6, 8, 11, 16, 22, and 32. Okay. Now those are your f-stops. Any numbers in between there, like if you go from I believe from 11 it goes to 13 to 14 to 16. Those are thirds of stops. So we're not going to deal with thirds of stops today, just to keep it simple. So we're going to use just the major f-stops, the main f-stops, basically the f-stops, not the thirds of stops, okay? And that's what we're going to use just for simplicity's sake. When you're taking a picture, you're collecting light. Now the light is going onto either your film or, nowadays it's going onto your digital sensor, so I'm sure not a lot of you use film. Anyhow, when the light comes through the hole, the size of the hole is the aperture. So it's either going to be, big or small, or on these different apertures that are in between. So, if you had a lens that was a 2.0, this would be 2.0, and then if it went all the way down to f32, 32 would be very small, okay? So now that we know that, we can move on. Now, different situations have, a different aperture, you have your different aperture, shutter speed, and film speed to create the proper exposure. But right now we're talking about the aperture, okay? So just to let you know, the aperture is one of the three things. Now, every situation has a different aperture that's going to work for getting a proper exposure. You decide what the proper exposure is. You decide what looks good to you. But you also decide what looks bad. So when you look at it, you might say, oh, that's too dark, or oh, that's too light, or ooh, that's just right. But if you have a picture that's too dark, you're going to need more light. If you have a picture that's too light, you're going to need less light. Now your apertures are what affect that. I'm sure you know that. If you don't, here you go. What you may not know is that they do it in a very mathematical way. It's a very precise way that they, from one stop to the next, is going to either double or cut in half the amount of light that comes in. So if your perfect exposure was at f8, when you move to f11, you are going to be getting, the hole's getting a little bit smaller when you go to f11, and you're going to be getting half the light that you got at f8. Now when you go from f8 to f11 to now down to f16, you're going to be getting half of the light that was getting at f11 is going to be at f16, which is 1/4 the light of what you were getting at f8. All right? Now if you go from 16 to 22, you're going to be getting half of the 1/4, so you're going to be getting 1/8 of the light. So 1/8 of the light from f8 if you go 1 stop, 2 stop, 3 stops over. Okay? Now, if you went from f16 to f22, am I getting that right? Okay, 11 to 16 to 22. Okay, so now if you go to 22, you're not only, now you don't have just 1/8 of the light, now you have 1/16 of the light. Okay? Now, I made this graph to show you, so you could see where it's tracking, and you can get an idea, because to say 1/8, 1/16, 1 that stuff, okay, it says something, but it doesn't mean anything to most people. It doesn't mean anything to me. But when you see it in a graph, or you see the picture's exposure changing by it, you start to realize the power that your camera has and the amount of light that you can pull in or that you can cut away by simply adjusting your aperture. So if you think of the range of light that there is, You know, there's basically the stops that I told you. There was 9 different stops. There's 32, F32, F22, F16, F11, F8, F56, F4.0, F2.8, and F2.0. That's 9 stops. But from here to here, from 32 to 2.0, there's 9 stops, but it's not 9 times the light. Okay? Check this out. It's 2 times, 4 times, 8 times, 16 times, 32 times, 64 times, 128 times, and 256 times the amount of light that you get with F32. There's 256 times more light in the F2.0 than there is in F32. That's like insane to think about, that there's that much range that you're going to get. So even if you had a lens that goes to 5.6 and you're thinking about getting a lens that goes to 2.8, you know, what's the difference between 5.6 and 2.8? Well, if you're getting this much light, you know, and you can get a picture at whatever speed with the light that you're getting at 5.6, to go to 4.0, you're getting double the light from 4.0. And then to go to 2.8, you're getting double the light that you'd get from 4.0. So now you're getting, you know, it's quadrupled the amount of light in the same amount of time to take a picture. So, you know, like I said, you know, depending on what skill level you are, you might not be able to understand what that can do. But as you learn and as you get better, you're going to start realizing that, oh, if I double my light, that's insane. You know, if I can quadruple my light just by simply buying a better lens, you know, because you can't control the light everywhere you are. You know, in a studio, you can turn up the light. You know, but when you're outdoors or indoors, if you're shooting a wedding and you're inside of a place, you can't turn up all the lights. You know, you can't, and you can only slow down your shutter so far to be gathering the light. You know, if you have a lens that you can pop open the shutter more stops than you could than the guy standing next to you, your picture's gonna be way better than his, because you can do your pictures with a shutter speed that's twice as fast or 4 times as fast. If you're thinking of shutter speeds, and at 1/125th of a second, you can get a shot, you know, with a 5.6 here. Well, if you can't open up your aperture anymore and you need twice the light or 4 times the light, you're going to need to go to 1/60th of a second to 1/30th of a second. And there you're going to be stuck with all kinds of motion. The power of knowledge and knowing that, you know, that you can get twice as much light by just going from one f-stop to another, and twice as much as that going to the next, and twice as much as that going to the next, you start realizing how much light you can draw in just by simply opening your aperture and using your aperture to its advantage. So, you know, if you get to know your aperture, you know, like I said, there's 3 things, but if you get to know your aperture very well, then you can get to know your shutter speed real well. Then you can get to know your ISO real well. And I'll tell you what, they all work on the same concept, the same mathematical principle of doubling and dividing. When you start realizing that your shutter speed, your aperture, and your ISO all work on the same exponential concept, and that it's doubling and having light, you start realizing how you can just click them, click, 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 and it all clicks into place when you're out there shooting. The more you practice, the more you start, you know, you apply these concepts. And if you don't know about it and you don't have a concept for what it is, you can't really apply it when you're out. And if you do, you're applying it kind of like arbitrarily. You don't know exactly what you're doing. So, you know, learn this concept and apply it in your everyday doings in your photography, and you'll start seeing light, and you'll start seeing where it's, you know, there's so much more to this concept, and this is the base of something more that I'm going to be teaching you. There's so much more to this concept, and it gives me the chills just to think about how it can affect your photography, to see the light in different ways, and to see it's the study of light. So, you know, the more you learn about light, the more you'll see the world in a different way, the more you can photograph the world in a different way. And so that's what this study of light is all about. And like I said, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more, and I can't wait to teach you. So, you know, I love you guys, man. Keep watching, and, you know, this isn't for everyone. You know, not everyone's going to like this. But if you do, keep watching, because there's a lot to learn, okay? Don't worry about those other people. I'm not. Shit. Peace, baby!